Hello, Rebecca here. Today I'm going to make a couple of banners for Empire. Set dressing really adds to the look and feel of the game, and banners are a really handy option. They can provide a good visual punch in a relatively lightweight, easy to pack form. They can also be pretty simple to make. Mine are just acrylic paint on cotton canvas. Now, you may be thinking, but acrylic is water-based. Won't they be ruined in the rain? But once it's dried, it's pretty hard to shift. This one's been hung out along the roadside at multiple events in all weather. It's even got its own share of anvil mud splatter at this point, and no significant loss or blurring of paint. So, let's get on with the new ones. I'm starting off with some plain cotton canvas. This piece is a bit big, so I'm going to cut it in half, and then in half again, for 4 pieces about 21 by 40 centimetre in size. I want to hem my banners, so I'm folding down about 5mm along the long edges, then folding again and pinning it in place. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Then it's time for some sewing machine ASMR, I guess. I just used a basic straight running stitch, making sure to go back and forth at the start and end of each line to secure the thread. Next up is the top edge of the banner. I've opted to add a channel so I can hang these from a short dowel, so I folded down 5mm, then about 3 centimetres and pinned it in place. On the bottom edge I folded up a generous 5mm and then folded the banner in half, right sides together. This will hopefully make more sense in a minute. Back to the sewing machine. Another straight line along the top, going over that 5mm folded bit and leaving the channel open. My machine wasn't too happy with the thickness at the start of the bottom seam, but a bit of careful fidgeting and I got through it. So now I can flip that bottom seam inside out and lay it flat to form the point at the bottom of the banner. I can even angle it for an asymmetric point. A nice thing about working with this canvas is that you can press a fold in place with just a finger, which is just enough to hold it while you do a last line of stitching to fix the point in place. Stitch. And ta-da! Now we just repeat that 3 more times. That little pocket on the point is visible against the dark mat here, but hopefully it won't be too obvious when it's hanging up, and I'm thinking that popping a small weight in there might help on breezy days. So, I decided to do some planning sketches, because having sewn these, well, I don't want to ruin them with just random paint. So I drew a quick outline of the shape, and then these two different sun ideas for pride. Now, this one, I think, compared to this one, which is very rising sun, this is sun, which I think probably fits better. I need a circle. Coffee lid? That's, well, probably a bit small. What about this one that I have lying around? Yeah, I think that's probably about the right size. So I'm going to just draw around this with a pencil. Nice and easy. Marks the canvas quite well. And then I'm going to add little triangles for the rays of the sun all the way around. Smaller than I probably want to paint. Okay, I've got cadmium yellow, primary yellow. I've got this little tube of orange in case I want to add just a smidge to it. I've got white for making things lighter, and I've got this interesting little metallic iridescent copper, which could be fun. Might use that. So, first up, paint in the palette. White, primary yellow, cadmium yellow. And we need to choose a brush. I think I'm going to go with a flat brush. This one's probably about the right size. Should work okay. I'm going to start by wetting the brush down thoroughly. It's always good to do with acrylics. You don't just have dry paint on your brush. I want some primary yellow and then white, and I'm going to mix those together and have a paler yellow to start with. So grab a bit of each of those. A bit of mixing later and I've got this nice pale yellow. I'm going to add some water to it just to help it spread a bit further on the canvas, and then just move some fluff and get stuck in the middle of the sun. I'm going to use this to go around the base of all the rays of the sun as well. I want to build up a gradient from light to dark. So working on that, we're going to add the pure primary yellow now, going nice and carefully around the edge of that circle, and bringing in the pale yellow in the middle just to blend it in a bit more. Adding the primary yellow to extend out the rays all the way around. Moving on to a smaller brush, which we're going to wet thoroughly, of course. We're going to pick up some of that darker cadmium yellow, and I'm going to use this to go around the edge of all the sun rays, adding some curves and also some little pointy flares. This makes the sun ray look a bit more flame-like, but could maybe also be seen as a thorny note, since after all this banner is being created by a Navarr character. I mean, if I'm going to make a banner to symbolise pride, I might as well squeeze in a sneaky bit of national pride, right? I'll make the top and bottom rays the most dramatic, since I have room to do so, but I'll go around and add a little more life to each of the other rays as well. Then I'm going to come back with the pale yellow again, and I'm just going to go over the base of each ray and really try to hammer home that gradient. And then I think it's time to pull out that shiny copper. Now, I don't want to use too much of this, but the yellow alone doesn't stand out very well from the canvas, so I think an outline is called for. I'm going to mix it in with the yellow to tone down the copperiness just a little bit, and then it's on to very carefully outlining everything. While I'm editing this, I'm realising I really should have changed the camera angle from straight top down, but, well, you live and learn. This took quite a while to do, but I think it really makes a difference. I tried sort of blending in the copper at the base of the flames, but I didn't really like how it came out, so I'm going to go back over with the pale yellow again, just to neaten the lines and build on that light to dark gradient. I could have just painted this whole thing in one flat yellow tone, but adding a bit of a gradient from light to dark will hopefully give this sun a nice subtle glow and really help make it pop, although the outlining's done a lot to help with that already. I'm giving the fabric a bit of a tug here just to try and stretch it out a bit. I think some of the larger areas of paint pulled the fabric in tight as they dried, so just trying to straighten it out a bit. And then that really is that. You can see the paint came through a bit there on the paper. It shows a little on the back, but it's the back. I'm not too worried about it. Next Next up, I thought about doing some vines in the top corner, maybe the bottom two, with a central labyrinth. But maybe that's a bit too bitty. So then I thought about bringing the vines in to make the labyrinth, but I wasn't too sure. I kind of like both, so maybe combine the two and aim for something more like the second one. Okay, first we sketch. This time though, I'm going to use my coloured pencils. I need a brown, that should do, and a green, this one, that one, that'll do. Now this is because when I used the pencil before, I didn't realise how much it would show through the paint. I don't know how well you can see it, but I can still see the triangle that I drew at the start. Might not be as much of a problem with the brown and the green, but better safe than sorry. Right, I've drawn my design and we're going to start with a central labyrinth in this nice unnamed reddish brown, maybe with a bit of copper along the way. Paint in palette and the line painting begins. This design is a whole lot of lines, some with thorns, which I am very carefully adding, trying to keep the edges crisp. More lines, more thorns, more lines, more thorns, more lines and thorns. So many thorns. Then we'll move on to a drop of the copper, and I'm just going to go over some of the central lines to make the labyrinth stand out a little more from the thorns. There we go, nice and shiny. Next up we have some sap green. I'm going to start off by mixing a few drops of water into the paint, just to make it flow better. I find it helps for line work to get crisper edges. And then guess what? We're going to be painting some more lines. But this time, instead of adding thorns, we're going to add leaves. Lines and leaves. Leaves and lines. We'll add a bit of variation to some of the thorns by going over them with a touch of green, and then it's more lines, and even more leaves. Then I mixed a little bit of the brown and green together to get a darker green, and added a touch of shading here and there to the leaves. And also making some of the thorny bits darker as well for just a bit more depth overall on the banner. And that's the second banner done. This one is supposed to represent the Navarr National Assembly, so hopefully they like it. So these two little banners are going to be hung up as markers for a couple of meetings in the field at Empire. Maybe you'll spot them. Thanks for watching as always. If you enjoyed seeing this project come together, maybe consider hitting the like button or subscribing for more. See you next time. Are you helping, Jiji? You're going to make sure the fabric doesn't escape and check that the tea is not poisonous, and then show everyone your butt. Charming.